So today we're talking about custom fields, just kind of like a tips and tricks, what to do, what not to do. I have here on my screen, let me see, make sure I'm sharing the right one. Yep, looks good. Okay. So if you go to the setup window here, click on your name, click setup, you get to this admin menu. To access any standard custom fields, you just simply click Customize, and then you actually have a list of all the standard objects in Salesforce. And you can click on the object, fields. Many of you have probably been here a ton of times, but for those of you who haven't, this is how you get to it. The manual way, you can click on, standard fields are listed above here, and then custom fields are listed below. And it's important to understand the difference between these two types of fields, because in a standard field you can hardly make changes, and it does vary based on what standard field it is that Salesforce created. But they limit basically the name is static. Some of them you can't even remove from the page layout; they have to be included. Sometimes there's like one or two that are required, but the basic idea is that as you look at these standard fields, you'll see a lot of them are very locked down, and the things it lets you change are very limited. Now, on the opposite of that, we have the other side of the fence is custom fields. So custom fields, you can create the name, you can create what they do, what they link to. Everything about them is editable. You can even adjust the field type if you want, anything like that. So it's very nice to be able to, when you make custom fields, it's very nice to be able to make everything fit your needs better than maybe something that has a naming convention that you're not familiar with. This is how you get to standard fields and custom fields in the standard objects. Custom fields or editing fields for a custom object is a little bit different. So if you created your own object, like your own, like let's say accounts, contacts, and then you have one called projects, that's a custom object. To get there, you'd actually want to come in here to your setup menu and go down to create, objects, and then you actually click on your object, and then here's where you'd see, again, standard fields, custom fields, and because it's a custom object, there's actually more details are on the exact same page versus how you saw in the standard objects. Everything's kind of broken out on the left sidebar here to make it easier. In custom objects, everything's just right here. As you scroll down, you can go through all the different things. The first two at the top, standard fields, custom fields, and then they have the same basic rules. Standard fields in custom objects they follow the same rules apply, but there's usually like a lot less of them, and it's pretty much as open as they possibly can make it. For example, you have to have some sort of name, whether it be a text name or whether it be a number for the custom object to identify the record. But you can change what it's called, and you can change, whether it's a number, an auto number, whether it's a name, and a lot of things like that you can change because your custom object has complete control, or almost 99.99 complete control. So let's go get started and look at some regular fields here, some custom fields. Actually, before that, let me show you one other way to get to custom fields that's actually a lot quicker. So if you're in an object, like let's say I'm in the lead object, let's pull up this guy here. So let's talk about some of these fields. So Salesforce comes with a few fields that basically help keep data clean. It helps keep your system more than just free-form text boxes all over the place. There are a lot of systems that people have that there's no real validation towards what they type into a box, so they could be typing notes into a phone number field. They could be typing notes into email field, and a lot of times people do exactly that. Like they just oh, these notes I'm writing have to do with an email, so I'm going to type them in the email field. That's actually a really bad practice. You don't want to be doing that. You don't want to type, no phone in a phone number field or something like that other systems allow you to do. So Salesforce has a lot of different fields here, and I'll talk about them briefly. We have auto numbers, which are extremely good for tagging your records, like for maybe even for an external system or for like an invoicing system or some way you need to quickly be able to say, yeah, refer to document 1234. You can create auto numbers, and you can actually create them. What's really nice is you can create them with quite a few. Let me make one up here. Test display format. You can make them with quite a few different formats. So you can see right here there's an example. So I can come in here and I can say, like, let's say this was an invoice. I could say INV and then dash or something, and then like it shows here the brackets. So I put brackets and I put how many characters I want. So I put, let's say, 5 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close brackets. So now, and then I could put a starting number. I could say just starting number is 1 and field name. So what's really nice about this is now if I could say generate auto numbers for existing records, and now if I go look at a record, let's go look at one here. Let's say this is called invoice number. And that doesn't really make sense because I'm doing this on the lead object, but the idea is the same regardless of what object you put it on. So invoice, okay, next. And I'll say, oh, as you go through these fields, or as you go through field making, and I'll probably touch on this quite a few times, but there's the description box. This is more for like internal notes. So if you're writing notes in a custom field, even standard fields that you want to know you want other admins to know, hey, this is why I built this field, you put it in the description. Help text would be more like client facing, so not back end, but more like front end. When someone's actually looking at this field, what are they supposed to do with it? What does it mean to them? So you type that in the help text there. So an example of a description might be needed for third-party integration. Okay, maybe you have some code that is linking to this number to attach records or to attach files in your system. So you want to make sure that no one ever comes in here and just deletes it or gets rid of it or something, or tries to make changes without knowing that, hey, this might mess up third-party integration. And then help text might say, give to client for referencing documents. Then here we have the new custom field level security. Just usually visible to everybody. In very rare cases, you're going to want to make it not visible. So I would just recommend always making this visible. Then there's the read-only. Next. Oh, let me discuss that. Read-only would be this is an auto number field, so this doesn't apply because no one's ever going to be able to edit the auto number field. The system edits it, so it's always going to be checked as read-only. Read-only just means they can view it, but they can't make changes to it. So we'll say next. Next is going to ask you what page layout you want to add it to. So we'll say we only have one, so it's good. We'll click Save. And if you go to a lead, you will see here. Let me see here. Let me refresh the page. You will see here we have a nice auto number field. And since there's only 2 leads in this organization, you can see this is number 2. INV dash, and it keeps the exact same format we gave it. Even has the help text. Okay. So that is an auto number field. We also have formula fields, which are nice. These can be kind of like a discussion of all by themselves, but they allow you to basically display, you could put like, if you have two number fields, you could say this number field A times number field B, display the answer here. It would display that. Lookup relationships are important. These are how you actually relate different records or different objects to each other. So you could have like parent-child relationships. The object that you're looking up to is the parent, and then the children show as a related list. So down below, these are all related lists. So these are all children of this parent. And then if you have a lookup field on here, those would be parents. And a lookup field looks like, let me show you an example of one. Lookup field. Okay, looks like this. Has a little magnifying glass, and it actually looks and searches for other records in the system. So that's important to note. Next we have checkboxes. These are just true, false. So you could say like has attachment checkbox, or anytime you have a form you have clients fill out, or you might fill out just saying yes or no. Do they have it? Do they not? Or anything having to do with true, false. You can use this checkbox. Currency allows users to enter a dollar or other currency amount. So it's just formatting the field so it shows a dollar sign or whatever currency your system's in. It shows that sign beforehand, and the system understands that it's currency. So in any code or anything, that would be helpful. Date allows users to enter a date. It has a calendar as well, which is really nice. If you look at a record here, let me see if we can find a date field. Let's see, leads, John. No date fields. Let's make one. So go next and just say contacted, or I could say first contact. Oops, let's spell this correctly. And then I see all these different options here. Nope, not worried about it. Next, next, save. So, okay, so now we have a first contact, and you see it has a nice little date calendar box to help you out, and you can put dates in there and say, I contacted them yesterday. Think, save. And the system recognizes it as a date, and you can actually use reports and do reports to do lots of cool things because the system knows it's a date. Next field we have is email. Email just simply forces it to be in the email format. If it's not in the email format, it won't let you write in this field. Geolocation it's like a location type field. This is something that would be very rare that you would actually use, and it's pretty new. But that's the idea of what it does. Number field just means it has to be numbers. It cannot be alphanumeric. It has to be numeric. Percent displays it as a percent, and then the system knows it's a percent. So you can also, it helps you with reporting, things like that. The next one here is phone. Same thing. It just basically says if it's not in a phone number format, it'll recognize it, and it'll put it in a phone number format, or it'll give you an error and say that's not a valid phone number. Pick lists allow you to define a list of values. So if you look at this lead object, there's a lead status field. This is an example of a pick list. See how it has this drop down arrow. You click it, open, qualified, unqualified, contacted, and the values are predetermined. The important thing, and then there's multi-select pick list, which just basically allows you to select more than one. Then after that, there's just text boxes. These are just different sizes and whether they're rich or long or encrypted or not. So, gives you a lot of different options here. This would be a text box you could pull up in reports, so it'd be important to use this one if you want to show it in reports. This is more of a larger area. This is a huge area. This would be a huge area but also rich, so you could put like fancy looking, how you'd see it in Word. You could put fancy text in there. And then text encrypted means that you can make it so only people with like an encrypted permission in Salesforce can read what's in it. And then it's more secure on the page. It doesn't show, like the browser can't even see what it's saying kind of thing. And then the URL, you can put website addresses and it will actually see if it's a website address. One important thing to note about custom fields when you're making them is you always want to prefer some sort of validation, like whether it's a number. If it's a number, put it in a number field. If it's a phone, put it in the phone field. Try not to use text boxes for everything. And they give you nice features like date fields you can pull in reports, phone number fields. Third-party systems know it's a phone number, so it'll let you like call the number straight from the browser. They're pretty cool, things like that. And then pickless fields, you're going to want to do as much as you can. So text fields just allow for crazy data to be entered all over the place in the system. So whenever possible at all, you want to make a pick list and just define the values so your users, as they're using the system, aren't just typing random things that, or maybe even spelling. Maybe they are typing the same thing, but they're spelling it differently, or they mess up. One's capitalized, one's lowercase, one's space, one's dash. So when you try to pull up a report, it's kind of anarchy going on because your report is so difficult to define what you're looking for, because you can't just say if it equals this, show it, because it might not equal that because it might have 19 different versions of the way you write the state California, CA, Cali, California, So, and that's an example of just like a state field messing up. But I've seen systems where they've had hundreds of duplicates where it's the same thing but just written 100 different ways, and that can really cause issues. So whenever possible, use a pick list. And then if you really need to, you can put like maybe a pick list, and then if it's an other, then put a text field below or something. So the majority will get captured in the pick list for reporting and finding records later. But that's basically it for custom fields. One other thing I did want to show you real quick was when you create a field, I'll just put text box here. It'll ask you sometimes the length of the field. This just means how many characters can be in the field. So I can put like 50 and say they can type up to 50 characters in this text box. Another thing I wanted to show you is there's a required here. You don't ever want to use this required. This can cause, unless you really, really, really need to lock it down like that, you need to pay attention to not use this, because this can cause validate things to fail, imports to fail, like all sorts of custom code to fail, or documents being created mess up when you start to integrate third-party systems. So if you want to require something, the best way to do it is go on the page layout, edit the layout, and just simply come over here and mark it required. That one cannot be required. That's a standard field. See, those tricky standard fields. Come to a wrench, click required, and now when you save it, number of employees here has that red line, so anyone who's filling it out will have to put a number in here to save it, but it won't affect background operations at all. Then you could also make things unique, so you could say don't allow duplicate values, and then you could tell it, does capitals matter or not for that. You could set this as an external ID, like if it's a text field that this is actually an identification type number that you're getting from another system, then you'd want to mark this box, and then it would help you with importing and exporting, like linking data together, because it knows it's an external ID, and it won't let it be. It'll make sure it's unique. And then what's really nice for some fields is you have a formula editor for a default value. So I can come in here and I could just say the default value is, let's just say party. Bink. So if they type nothing in this field, it's going to stick with party as the default value. And I'm going to say text box, I'll call it, because that's what we're doing. Let's get that E out of there. Bink. Next. And click next. Yes, make it visible. Well, you know what? Let's make it, this is tricky here. Let's make sure it's visible to everybody. and then next, and save. So now if I go look at a lead, go to a new lead. So if I make a new lead here, because this one has the box but it's empty. Okay, so I make a new lead, and upon creation it automatically sets the value to party, as you can see here. And when I'm creating the lead, I could actually come in here and just say, I can just erase it if I wanted to, or just say something else, or say no party. You know, I could say literally whatever else I want in here because it's a text box up to 50 characters. But what's nice about that formula field is it let me default value things, or give a default value to fields as they go in. And you can make formulas that are like more complex, a little more intelligent than that. So they grab information like this times this equals, and then place that in the formula, or something like that, or date stamp, or anything. You could make them pretty smart little formula fields, but I just did a basic one here where I just said display this text. But that's a pretty cool thing you can do. But the most important thing to remember as a recap of custom standard fields aren't variable, custom fields are. When you make custom fields, really, 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 really pay attention to what you can do to block down the data, what you can do to make sure it's a pick list, or at least some sort of number field, email, phone, and at the very, if you really, really, really cannot do anything else, then you open it up and give some free text fields for people to just write in whatever they want here. So that is a little short blurb about custom fields.